life and survival on tour, right? You know,
Yeah, well, it is a full arc life cycle, a tour. From the birth of a tour when you first get hired and you start to see the plans and the things start to form around it, and then now we're starting to move forward till you get closer. It's kind of like being in grade school, the rehearsals. You're now in high school. It is a life cycle.
I get it. You know, I mean, it was funny. Like my first national tour was Emerson, Lake and Palmer, right? Where I was an audio guy, one of two American audio guys. The rest of the audio guys were British, and the lighting guys were most of them were American. Everybody else was completely British, right? And it was a really interesting learning experience for me, you know, because like the guy who had recommended me to be hired, I go, "Do you have any advice?" And he says, like, keep your head down, listen to everything that goes on, right? And don't speak unless spoken to, because nobody cares about your opinion at this point, you know, until people get to know you or people get to experience your work ethic or whatever, right? And I thought that was because the British tours were very rigid compared to American tours, right? Because backline guys were usually hired by how many days they could drive a truck without sleep and if they could carry a SVT bottom up a flight of stairs. That was like, okay, you're hired. You know, you get paid $100 a day and $8 a day per diem, you know.
And not for nothing, they were just referred to as humpers. They weren't tech. They were there for muscle. They were humpers.
The term roadie actually comes down from road manager, because road
Right.
managers were the guys who moved the band, moved the gear when there wasn't insane amounts of gear, like semis full of crap now, you know, set courts and staging.
Hey, listen, the Beatles had Mal Evans and Neil Aspinall, two guys. That's it,
No, I get it. Yeah. And you see those pictures of like a drum set, you know, and bunch of
Yeah.
guitars and cases and some really weak guitar stands and a really bad cabling going on, but they were playing stadiums, you know, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But advice I give people is you really have to look at it like an athlete, the health of your body and making sure you eat well, try and eat right. You know, simple stuff for life, but it becomes much more apparent when you're putting a lot of stress on yourself.
Well, speaking of the stress factors, I started out obviously moving equipment around and dealing with guitars and instruments and techs, but it wasn't my strong suit. My strong suit was the logistics,
Right.
and I would look at situations that I was involved in and going, oh, I can do this better. Or seeing what they were doing and feeling like, man, I shouldn't have to be going through this, this, and this, and this to get to there. It should be simpler than that. And that's kind of how I began to move towards for management to take charge. But what I didn't see then, and it took me a lot of years to figure out, was how isolating that job actually is. Tour manager is at the beck and call of the principal artist. As you well know, from Steely Dan. And, so whereas the guys in the band may go, let's go to this museum. We're in Hamburg and there's a great museum. Let's go to the art museum there. And a couple of guys would go, or they go out for, Hofbrau or what, I'm going, well, he's got an interview at 2:00. I got to be back by then. Oh, well, we're not leaving until 1:30. Boom, I'm done. I can't go. And I assume that it's true for most people who do what I've done, nowadays still, that you don't get to bond with the others the way they get to bond with each other internally. That the tour manager, not only by definition, is on the outside of that bubble, but he's also between the inner bubble that is the band and the bubble that is the crew. There's no Venn diagram that puts the tour manager right in the thick of it. Even a production manager, when it's a day off, unless there's a problem ahead, has a legitimate day off. But for me, it was really disorienting, and I felt very alone a lot of the times when I'd call around and go, I've got, a couple of hours to kill. Who's around? And everybody's scattered about.
Loneliness is an issue.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, especially in our early days, I was out on the road 8, 9, 10 months at a stretch. I didn't even have an apartment here in New York any longer.
Oh, I know how that goes.
Yeah. I would stay at a friend's house, stay at my brother's apartment, stay at my parents' house, whatever, or if I was seeing somebody at the time, I moved in with them, But I would come home and it would be maybe 10 days at the least, maybe 2 to 3 weeks on average. I would wake up one morning and go, oh, this is me. I'm back. And the next day you'd be on a plane going to the next regular tour.
It's like time shifting and time travel or something, I mean, like you go to the West Coast, your body reflects that because your internal clock is fucked up. Even traveling like one time zone away, all of a sudden things are a little out of kilter.
You learn to deal with that on a personal level. You learn how you work and what works for you. It's kind of survival mechanisms in real time.
Sometimes I just want to get away from everybody.
Well, and I wanted the opposite because I was always away from everybody.
Depends on the situation. There were some bands where if you were a party, they're sick of me and I'm sick of them, and like, I always would try and include them into something, because after you hit that fourth week, it's like, welcome to another dimension of time and space. The littlest things annoy you, right? But depends. The higher up you get on the ladder, the less shows a week there are. The heritage kind of bands, the older bands, right? They can't do 5 shows in a row, 6 shows in a row, right? They can't do it anymore, right? And you'll find like show, day off, show, day off kind of stuff, right? Or show, day off, show, day off, show, day off.
So 2 days off.
Right. It's depending on what kind of show you do. If you're doing a really energetic show, like Mick Jagger playing a stadium, right? God bless that guy, right? It's like, it's like go run around, with thrusts that go 75 feet out into the audience, acting like I'm 20. I don't know what happens to him on the day off. To just sit in a tub of Epsom salts. I think that's what I would do,
Yeah.
if you have to walk that far, But so I was thinking, you talk about loneliness on the road, and you got people going, I live on a bus with 12 other people, right? The last thing I want to do is see these people somewhere else. And I go, that is a point. That sometimes you need you time. I tell you, if I tell someone I was on tour and I was like, I'm going to this art museum in Chicago, and people will go like, art? It's like, you're going to look at pictures? I go, yeah, I am. Okay, got to go. You're welcome. I'm taking a car.
One of the funniest things that happens whenever I'm advancing hotels, whenever I'm talking to a hotel, they'll invariably think they're really being sweet to me and taking such good care of the band and go, we have everybody blocked off in the same area of the hotel.
They don't want that.
Oh,
That's why.
With Tommy James and the Shondells, it's actually in writing. When we send out a hotel rider, I have it in the rider that my room has to be away from everybody else's.
Listen, a lot of bands have hotel riders.
Yeah.
There was a Steely Dan hotel rider.
Yes, there was. Right. I have it. We need an extra refrigerator and empty out the alcohol, please. Out of the one that's there.
But same thing. You take your time off as being important, and you want to have the things so you don't have to go out and get any of them. I'm pretty sure that kind of like a Stones tour, they carried their own furniture.
Yeah.
They had an advanced person. What a great gig.
With Herb Alpert, we carried our own bedding.
Carry their own bedding, carry their own furniture. I want my desk. They're like, okay. When you're on a 21 truck tour, it's like, you carry, 2 billiard tables. What's the difference about carrying some beds in your desk?